the idea of DevOps is it brings the two groups of people together. It could be implemented in different ways. So you can have operations people working closely with developers, or you can have developers pick up skills to work in operations.
Hello and welcome back to Future You, the podcast brought to you by graduate careers experts Prospects. I'm your host, Emily Slade, and in this episode I chat to John, who works in DevOps.
I'm John Knight. I'm a DevOps engineer. I work for a company in Newmarket. It's kind of like a chemical company, produce disinfectant products for hospitals.
How would you explain DevOps to someone who's unfamiliar with it?
So essentially it's looking after or creating and looking after the infrastructure that services in the cloud kind of sit upon. I mean, the term DevOps is coming together of two different fields in IT, development and operations. Mm-hmm. So historically, you'd have those two teams, or like groups of teams, separately, operating separately, so siloed off, which has its challenges. So developers would sit there, they'd design software, write code. When they're done, they'd literally throw it over the wall to operations, and then those guys would then just need to figure out how it all needs to work together and how to deploy it and how to make it work properly. That's not the ideal situation. Mm-hmm. It leads to delays and finger pointing. So when things don't work, developers are saying operations didn't implement it properly. Mm-hmm. Operations are saying it wasn't written correctly. So customers are the ones that suffer at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. So the idea of DevOps is it brings the two groups of people together. So it could be implemented in different ways. So you can have operations people working closely with developers and vice versa, or you can have developers kind of pick up skills to work in operations, and again vice versa, operations people can then learn to do some coding. Mm-hmm. So the idea is there's a lot more synergy, and that ultimately should lead to quicker delivery of software, and it also provides the opportunity where they can introduce automation. So all these menial tasks that people are doing, just moving around, clicking, selecting options, that can all be scripted. So end of the day, it should result in quicker delivery of software and happier customers.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. So did you start as a dev or an ops, or did you go straight in as a DevOps?
Development, yeah. Mm-hmm. So I kind of started properly in IT just under 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. I was studying at the college here in Norwich and did the first 2 years, and then we had the opportunity to go out and do a year in industry. So I took that and I worked for the county council. So I went in as an analyst programmer. So they didn't really set high expectations. It's more so you can get used to working in an organisation. But it's really good opportunity. You pick up a lot of skills. Mm-hmm. So from there, they offered me a job after that year, which I took, and I was also studying on day release. But from the county council, I was there for 10 years, I think. Mm-hmm. I then moved on to a new company. Many years of development, and I kind of got into database administration. So that's a whole kind of field by itself. And then I maybe 5-6 years as a DBA, we had some transitions in the company and became a server engineer. So not dissimilar to the database administrator, but more looking after servers where everything ran. Mm-hmm. And then I went into team leadership, but stayed in that sector. And then again, we had new projects coming into the company, and this was our flagship product. So I took an opportunity to jump onto that project, and that's when I kind of officially started as a DevOps engineer. Mm-hmm. I think maybe 4 years at my previous company, and I just started at a new company back in May last year.
Oh, brilliant. So what does a typical day look like for you?
So for today, for example, because workload's quite high at the moment, we've got a big project on to kind of improve our product globally. I think I was up about 7:30, check the emails and Teams messages, mm-hmm. Get the coffee, and then just straight onto it. So we have a ticketing system, so we can keep track of work items mm-hmm. and so on. So just dive in there, see what I need to be working on, focus on that really, for probably like the first couple of hours. Then we have what we call a daily stand-up. So it's a meeting across the development team where everyone joins, and you just have like a couple of minutes to say what you worked on yesterday, what you're doing today, any potential problems. Yeah, the rest of the day is pretty much just working on your tickets. There may be calls with team colleagues that you need to hop onto. Thankfully, there aren't like a lot of kind of emergencies that I have to deal with. A little bit different in the previous company because we were working with universities and educational institutes. There were like a whole range of live customers, and they would have issues on their end as well as like in between. So we're kind of like addressing it, researching the problem, and just kind of trying to get people up and running again as soon as possible. But yeah, touch wood. I've not had anything like that since I've been at the new company. So yeah, it's really quite interesting. It takes quite a bit of kind of like time to kind of like get your head around the problem to start with. But then through like Google, but mainly like Chat GPT and so on, we can go on and like find like different ways to kind of solve the problems. And then we just have to like apply what we've learned. Yeah, and we just like work through that kind of workload.
Yeah. So are these tickets that are coming in, are they going to be a variety of different problems that people are having with the system, and it's like no day is the same in a way? Or do you get a lot of the sort of same problems?
So for our developers, because I'm the only DevOps engineer in the company.
Oh my God. No pressure.
Yeah. We have like a small team of developers, and they deal mainly with the customer issues. So their workload is a bit more varied than mine. The good thing about mine is I can kind of see where, what I'm going to be working on for not just like a few days, but a few weeks and months. So it's a bit more predictable. But yeah, I mean, there could be like an issue raised by a team colleague. So if I've written some what we call a pipeline, which is a process of just automatically deploying resources into the cloud where we host our infrastructure, you might say, like, I've tried this is broken. So you then have to like switch tasks onto that and look and investigate it and resolve it, and then go through the testing process. But yeah, generally it's fairly predictable. When we start like looking at new areas, like we've got a company that we're partnered with who are working on like AI, a way that we can like utilize that to improve our product. There's going to be ways there that we have to look at integrating their work into our infrastructure. So
I was going to say, your use of Chat GPT, like, is that as an extension of Google that your company are just happy with you casually using, or is that like a recommended, like, oh, now we're going to move over and use these tools alongside Google with our jobs?
It's kind of like done on an exception basis. So I don't think a lot of people in the company are using it within the DevOps field. I think wider speaking, I think more people are adopting it as an additional research tool. It's great, but you have to verify everything it tells you.
Yeah.
Suggests. So, and the same with like Google Gemini as well. They're like the end product is like the same. They give you like suggestions on how you can implement something, but it's not a matter of just like copying and pasting and like, oh, that's it, my job's done.
You just sit back.
It'd be nice if you could do that way.
Yeah. So I guess just to go right back to the beginning of your educational journey, as it were, what inspired you to move into this industry?
So as I was saying, the journey through to where I am now is kind of like started with development and coding. And I think from quite a young age, I was interested in that kind of field, so like at home, just, like learning, like I think it's called BASIC back in the day. It's just like, it seemed really cool. Like you just type instructions into the computer and it just like do what you tell it to do. Yeah, when I got the opportunity to study that at A-levels, that was great. And then I actually went off to University of Nottingham. It was going to be a 4-year course with the industry year. Didn't like the city, so came back and then started working back here in Norfolk. And then I thought, well, to kind of like try and progress further, to make sure there weren't going to be anything holding me back. I thought I need to get some educational, qualification behind me as well. So yeah, I signed up at the college to do. It was going to be again the degree. So the first year, second year, I got to the H&D point of view there, and then that year in industry, which led into full-time work. I didn't finish the equivalent of the third year, and it was only, I think it's about 10 years ago, I guess, I then thought, well, I want to complete that, so that degree. So I signed up with university to study remotely. So I completed the third and final year, and it took me probably about 3 years to do. It was a real slog. It was hard work, with like a young family, working full time,
Yeah, of course.
and I had like a bit of work abroad kind of like sprinkled in there as well. So yeah, it was challenging, but it's really rewarding. And to kind of like complete that degree course and go through graduation and have the photos and certificate at the end, it's like really quite cool and satisfying.
You mentioned a year abroad. What does that look like? Because in my understanding is this is sort of an almost global language, HTML or whatever it is that you're using. So what does the year abroad look like?
Back in the previous company, we had offices in several different countries, but primarily when like myself or my colleagues were to go, it would be to Sydney in Australia. So
there's other countries and then there's the other side of the world.
It's like short hop to Europe. But that was really good. Some of our colleagues went over there, and they like it so much they'd actually get transferred, and they got residency over there, and new lives and everything. But yeah, it was interesting, living in like a service department, just getting used to like different culture. It's very similar to like back here in the UK, but different as well at the same time. Even like going to the supermarket, like trying to find like fruit and veg, and it's all like labelled up differently. You're like you're speaking to an assistant, then they haven't got a clue what you're talking about. But there's a lot more pressure though, because obviously the company's invested a lot of money to get you over there and to put you up, and you're like paying for your expenses and everything. The hours were longer, and they definitely kind of were looking for like a kind of a higher output from you. But again, it's really good opportunity. If that presents itself to anyone, then I would recommend it. You can just like learn so much, because you kind of like having to be on the ball all the time.
Yeah.
But outside of work as well, you get the new experience, new culture, and make new friends. And like any different country you can get to and work in is great. And I had the opportunity as well to work in Manila for a month, which was really good. That was like a big culture shock.
Yeah. Oh, amazing.
Yeah, but I'd definitely recommend it if people get the opportunity to try that.
So what essential skills would you say you need to be in DevOps?
So I mean, like soft skills, communication, because you're talking not just with technical people but non-technical people as well. So they could be working in like the project management office. They could be analysts, or they might be like management levels upward, like C-suite employees. So you just have to know how to kind of like pitch, your explanations of things at different levels. Being able to form relationships with people, with your colleagues, really helps. I mean, you can turn up, do your hours, and you're done. But really, you get like a lot more out of it from getting to know people, and knowing how you can help them as well as they can help you. Problem solving skills are quite important. So even though we have like Google and Chat GPT, etc., as I was saying earlier, you can't just like rely on that to do your job for you. That's only like a small snippet. You've got to kind of have the ability to look at your ticket, or however your work items come in, determine what the actual outcome needs to be, and then break that down into logical, like little sections that you can progress through. Because sometimes you get a work item and it's like massive. It's like weeks worth of work, and it's a bit daunting.
Yeah.
But yeah, the best thing is to just like look at it and think, okay, well, to get to the end point, I need to achieve these different outcomes. So I'll just like focus on one, you know, like to get started with, and then once you've achieved that, you know, you get that kind of like a dopamine hit, you know, and you think, oh, this is great, you know, I've done that. Then it just kind of like helps you kind of roll on to the next. I mean, technically, it helps if you've got like a programming background, but that's not strictly necessary in all the roles. We have people that come from like networking backgrounds, so they spent all their careers in data centers, you know, like wiring, cabling, you know, devices and so on. And you get people that come from like the server side, so yeah, whether they've been like database administrators or like Windows or Linux server administrators. Yeah, I think it's quite good in that it's open to people with like experience in a quite a varied number of areas. But I think primarily like problem solving, logical thinking, you know, being methodical, and patience. Yeah, definitely, and perseverance as well. You know, that kind of goes hand in hand with the patience, because sometimes you can spend all day working on something, and it's like one of the worst feelings when you get to the end of the day and you know something's still broken, or you haven't just managed to kind of like get it across the line. But you know they're going to pick up in the morning, so yeah, you got to then like motivate yourself again in the morning. But it's kind of like it can be hard to switch off in the evening, because although you like, you know, you finished at say, I don't know, 5:30, 6 o'clock, you know, your mind is still active and it's still thinking about that problem. But yeah, it's important to kind of like take that break away. So, you know, as well as the soft skills, technical skills, you've got to be able to like look after yourself as well. You know, like your mental and your physical health. So, you know, if you get out for a walk with the dog or go to the gym or something, sometimes even just having a complete change of activities like that, it just helps your brain kind of like relax a bit.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh yeah, you know, then like different ideas pop in. So
yeah,
yeah,
that's such a good point.
there is so kind of AI is like kind of coming into so many different areas, you know, across like different sectors. I mean, I was like talking about how I can use it to help me with my job. There are other areas that I haven't even looked at yet. So I work only with Microsoft Cloud, Azure. There are other providers like Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, and they all have their own kind of like AI interactions. But with Microsoft, they have something called Copilot. So we can see that in Office products, which like a lot of people use across different sectors and like in administration as well. But also in the tooling that we use in IT, you know, it's there and it can provide that kind of like insight. So fairly similar to Chat GPT, but it's more integrated. So it's got like a better view on what you're doing. And again, if there are problems, it can say like, you know, you've defined these resources, but you know, you need this one as well, and kind of like aid you in like establishing that kind of link. It's not quite at the point where you don't have to do anything, you know, which is great because otherwise you'll be out of a job.
Yeah.
But
do you think that's the future? Do you think that's where it's heading?
I think in some areas in IT it could be. it's difficult at the moment because it's still fairly new. I mean, it's been around for it's been around for a few years, and it's constantly improving. But I think it's a little way off yet.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of like making itself, increasing its importance, I think, in certain roles. So there are roles like we have DevSecOps where you've got the development operations, but also security is like a big part.
Okay.
And there's like AI SecOps. So I haven't like looked too much into that, but you know, using AI to kind of, I guess, almost do like penetration testing. So it'll look at what you've got to offer as a product, and it'll be like poking around trying to see if it can like break it or get access to, you know, to resources that it shouldn't do. So yeah, it's not quite at Terminator level yet, but
Yeah.
you know, yeah, it's definitely not gonna like leave. You know, it's gonna become more of a feature. So it's important for people to kind of be aware of it and not just kind of dismiss it. You know, and hope it's going to go away, because it won't. But Microsoft, they have a whole range of like certifications, and they have like a fundamentals level, and it's the kind of thing that you can study for a day, take the exam, and so you get like your first Microsoft certificate. But they do that for Azure, so you can learn the basics. But yeah, a few years ago they introduced the AI fundamentals. So I think for people who are looking to get into like DevOps or IT generally, I think studying the AI fundamentals course, and they'll have similar from Google and Amazon. Yeah, it's time well spent, I think.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. What does career development look like? What's above DevOps?
You can get, I guess, like just different levels of seniority, really. If you want to stay technical, you know, within the technical side of the role, you can enter as like a junior DevOps engineer. And again, you might be a graduate, or you don't always have to have like university education to get into the field. So you could have maybe a little bit of experience, a bit of awareness. If you get into like a junior role, then you've got the progression up to mid-level and then senior. So obviously like the salaries, you know, get more interesting as you go further up that. To then kind of like progress further up the career ladder, once you've got to like the senior level, a lot of the time it means moving into management. And you know, not everyone wants to do that, and it doesn't suit everyone. So sometimes you get people who have kind of like reached what they perceive to be the limit of how far they can go in that role, and then they take a management opportunity, and then after a little while they think, actually, you know, I love working with people, but this isn't really what I want to be doing. I prefer to be hands-on, you know, like you know, actually producing something and get my hands dirty. So then they'll like move back again into like a senior or mid-level role. Yeah, I mean, if you decide to go down that route, you can go into like say management, and then from there you could go up to like department lead, and then chief technology officer or chief information officer, that kind of role. You know, it's like a lot of responsibility. So, you know, depending on the size of the organisation, you could be managing the whole IT for, you know, a company serving tens of thousands of users, you know, like just internally, or like hundreds of thousands, you know. So you got your customers on top of that, and you've got to, make sure everything keeps ticking along.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of responsibility if you get that.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not like a lot of money for doing nothing. Yeah, definitely. They definitely want their pound of flesh when you start bringing in the big bucks. But I think one of the nice things is, as I was saying, there's like the different kind of routes into this field, and yeah, it's not just those with like computer science degrees or master's degrees or anything. I think if you have them, then you can go like more into like specific fields or like data scientists, for example. But I've worked with a lot of people over the years who don't have like a formal educational qualification, but they've got an opportunity at somewhere down the line, and they've learned like a lot on the job, and from training courses, and I guess if you're not educational, you just doesn't float your boat, then that's fine. There's so many other resources you can draw upon. So I said about the Microsoft certification. They also have, I think they call it applied learning. I think they call it. So it's like very practical. So they'll give you like a scenario, and then they'll step you through how to complete the tasks to achieve that goal. YouTube's a good resource as well. Lots of people on there, so you've got different kind of resources on there. So interesting ones like a day in the life of. So software engineers, DevOps engineers, they're all on there, and they just like track someone through literally like waking up, making coffee, doing a bit of work, going out for lunch. So they're quite good to get like a little insight into what it's like to work in the role. But then you can get quite specific. So you can say like, I want to see how to build a pipeline in Microsoft Azure, and there'll be someone giving you a tutorial on there, and it's all obviously free. So that's great. LinkedIn's a good resource too.
Yeah.
So I definitely recommend anyone really who wants to get started in IT or looking for career change, if they're not on there, to get themselves set up on there. Start following people in the same field that they want to get into, and post on there as well. So each time they learn something, just like write a short little post, put it up there. You get feedback, not just on the article, like how it's written, but actually the technical content. So you'll learn back from that way. Because I found like a lot of people in technology want to share what they've learned. It's not like just hoarding it to themselves. There's no like, very few people are into job preservation. Where they hoard all the knowledge. It's part of the fun of it, really, I guess, is like sharing what you learn. And like through LinkedIn and people setting up their own blogs. It's a great way to do that.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Well, I've run out of questions, so thank you so much for your time today.
Okay, you're welcome.